Good afternoon, or it's afternoon here. This is where we're going to go next. Don't get excited, just we're going to do it a step at a time. This is a delightful beginning exercise because we're going to be scraping and blending. We'll use some of what you've learned in other videos. And I am going to put this so you can, I don't know, download it, trace it, ask me to email it to you. And here is the drawing. Now, before we start on this drawing, I want to show you a few things. Scraper, and you may need to stop here, get a little, if you have a scraper on the end of one of your brushes, good. I'm using a letter opener, a little paring knife will do. All of that is fine. And I'm going to wet, let's see, green in here. I'm going to clean my brush. And it's my brush, and I'm going to pull out. So the tip of my brush is wet. The tip is in the pigment, and I'm just pulling out that color. Now, when I use the scraper, I'm using the edge as if it were a pencil. And I'm drawing lines. And the pigment will soak into those indentations. Now, if you make a mistake while you're doing this, too bad. You can't undo this because I have marred the paper. So get on the back of something. I'm going to add another color here. I'm going to use here. I'm going to do the same thing. Now see, this is following. This is where the water is, but I have moved outside of the pigment here where the water is, and the scraper has brought with it some pigments, so I have a colored line. That takes practice. I know I get in here and I do these things and they look so simple, and they really are, but you've got to learn how to do them first. Now here I'm on the edge of my scraper and I am pushing pigment away. So let me do that again for you. Let's use a different color. Ooh-wee. Rinsing my brush, and I'm just letting that bleed out, which is all by itself real pretty. Now, what color is that? I don't know. It's on my palette because I was painting earlier. Again, I want to remind, we're not worried with color names. Pick any color that's on your palette because we're learning this technique. And I'm going to draw lines through the pigment. And I'm going to scrape. That was a bigger scrape, so I get a bigger line. If I want to add color, more color to it, if I want to put purple right out here, I'll put that out, water in my brush, bleeding it out. Now, I have too much water. And you'll learn too much water. I can soak some of it up with my brush. There you go. Pigment out here. And I've pulled some of it up so it's lighter in here. It's still going to do the same thing. You see? Wave it, jig-jag it, because it's making an indentation in that paper and the pigment will roll into it. And we're going to be doing a lot of that here on our iris. So practice that some. You know, we're not in a hurry here. I'm going to put that aside. And here's my drawing. Now, I think maybe not. I thought I had maybe tinted my water enough that you could see where I'm wetting. But I'm wetting this quadrant right here. And I'm going to get alizarin crimson or purple or blue. I'm going to use some all of it. And I'm going to draw that line because I know that that watercolor is going to stop. I'm going to skip a space and do that up here. I'm going to rinse my brush, knock some of the moisture off. And some, I don't know how to describe some. It's going to depend on how wet your brush is and what type of brush you're using. There you go. Now see, I have added some color in there. Like that. And I'm going to scrape or pull. I'm going to go, this is the beard right here. Let's put that beard in here. I'm going to wet this because it's important to. So there's the beard. I've put that in. I don't want that hard edge, so I've got the tip of my brush in here. I'm bleeding that out. Clean my brush, and I'm going to water all around here so it sort of bleeds into nothing. And I'm going to stick a little orange in here because I don't want hard edges. Ooh, look how pretty that's bleeding. And I'm going to scrape, use my scraper, and I'm going to draw lines toward the beard. And I'm going to do some short ones that connect, and I'll do some long ones. Okay. Well, Ray's home. Guess y'all heard. Here we go. There we go, scraping toward that beard. I can, depending on what I want this to look like, I can add more blue in here. I can, you know, I know that wasn't blue, that was purple. I can add some yellow in here. If I get it let me show you this, too much color in here. I don't want that much color, we're going to pretend, and although that does look nice, I'm going to get a paper towel, flatten it out, and pull some of it up. Now this is when you want a paper towel. I use Viva without a pattern, because sometimes if you've got a pattern in here and you do this and you pull your paper up and you've got the imprint of little teddy bears all in your painting. That's why I use one with no pattern. Now that's too wet to do here, but I can wet over here. I'm going to wet this entire space. There you go. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add some of, I'm using alizarin crimson. The color name doesn't matter. The manufacturer doesn't matter. We are just simply learning this. And if y'all are watching a beginning video, then there we go. I'm going to bet you're beginners. And we don't need to get, now look, I added some purple below that. Rinse my brush. And I'm going to use the scraper. And I'm going to scrape in toward the beard. Now see, I don't have enough pigment in there, so the pigment is not flowing. But I'm still marring the paper, and I'm going to show you that Right now, let's put a little more crimson in here. Lots of water on my brush. I'm going to smush that around. Smush is a technical term, you know. And I'm going to let that just bleed. And you see that pigment fell right into my scraping. Even though I didn't have enough pigment in the beginning, that's just not a problem. I left some little white spots here. That's not on purpose. If it bothers you, stick some pigment in there. If it doesn't bother you, you can leave it alone. Now, these are too wet to work on, so I'm going to go down here and I am going to add more water, clean water, here. And I'm going to do the same thing with the same colors. If y'all want to be using blue and orange or hot pink, use it, because we're figuring out here a technique more than we are looking for a beautiful, ooh, look at that spread in. That's pretty. Now I'll tell you it's pretty, but I'm going to tell you it did that because I've got too much water in here. I'd forgotten I wet from the beard, and that's just going all over the place. So I'm gonna, if somebody asks other than y'all, I'll say yes, I did that on purpose because it's so pretty. I'm doing the same thing here. Not everything turns out. Ooh, that's pretty too. And I'm just adding where I want. I'm going to rinse my brush, put it down here. I'm going to use the scraper. And once again, and if you want to turn it upside down, do. I am using my scraper to make these veins. See, and I'm bringing some of them here like a triangle and some all the way down toward the beard here. Now, you can get too many and you can get not enough. So if you think you're getting too many, don't put any more. And if you think you don't have enough, add some. Again, my pigment didn't go in there. I've got a little bit of purple on my brush. And I'm just squirting this pigment right on up in here. Smush that. And I'm going to leave it alone. This is opera pink, which is really pink. If you want to add pink, if you have pink, add it. If you want to add orange, add it. You might like it after you've done it, and you might not like it after you've done it. So let's move down here. In here, I'm going to add more yellow, sort of an extension of the beard. Clean brush, damp or wet brush. And again, I'm going to draw that line here on the edge with whatever color I want to. And I'm waffling this. This will be a straight edge, but I'm going to waffle that. I'm going to put some purple in here because there's not any. And I am going to get my scraper and come up. Now, I've got a lot of scraping going on, so I'm probably going to add less there. I'm going to come over here. Well, shoot, want my brush clean here. Clean water, but since that's in keeping. And I'm going to add yellow in here, sort of an extension here of that beard. I'm going to get into the crimson and I'm going to draw the line again. And I'm going to let watercolor do what watercolor does. Add some violet in here. Add some violet here. And do, again, the same thing. Marring the paper up. There. Now, this is too wet for me to work in here. That's dry enough. If it's not dry enough, use your blow dryer and get it dry. And again, I'm wetting the inside of it. Now, this is the part that flips over. So this edge is going to stay smooth. This is the edge that's going to be waffled. So I'm not going to put color on this edge, but I am going to put it on the outside or the waffling edge of the iris. Purple. See how that's going to waffle? And I'm going to do the same thing with my scraper. And I'm going to make my veins. Because we've got yellow in there, I'm going to add some more violet. All right, I've got to wet my brush and move that around so I have some pigment to fall into those veins. Well, look, uh-oh, that bled into here. I love uh-ohs. It's, in my mind, the sound of learning. I'm going to put a paper towel on the edge. Pull that up. Let it dry before I go back into it. And if that's not what I want to do, then I'll extend this edge, but don't do that now. We'll deal with that one later. Now I'm going to wet here. This is the straight line. I'm going to put the color in here. I might just leave it purple. I'm getting mighty everything. Get my scraper. And I'm going to scrape the veins into here. Not a whole lot of them, because this gets really very active. And as far as the flower is concerned, I'm going to call it done. Well, look right here. I dropped a piece of pigment in there. Didn't see it. So with a clean damp brush, I'm going to spread it out. Sometimes our pigment doesn't get dissolved quite enough. And there's that. Now I'm going to pause this and I'm going to blow dry it, because we're going to add the background. And this all needs to be very dry so that it doesn't all run into itself. Okay. All right, here we go. This is dry, dry, dry. So I'm going to get into my water. And I am saturating. I mean, I've got water, see, just dripping off my brush. And I'm going to carefully outline here and add a whole lot of water back here. And I'm adding too much water because I know that this is going to dry as I wet the rest of it. It'll begin to dry. So that's very wet. I'm going to do the same thing here carefully, because this pigment will stop where it hits dry paper. And I don't want my background bleeding into my flower. So here we go. Here we go. Very wet. Very wet, and I'm spreading it around so that I get it consistently over the paper, but not into the flour. Now, paper, I'm using Arches, 140-pound rough. That might be meaningful to you, and it might not. So see all this water I'm adding around here? And I'll have to check in the light to see if I've missed any spots. Same thing here. Being careful, 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 careful. There, that is a saturated piece of paper. And I'm going to let it soak in for just a second. And I'm going to put yellow here, 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 and here. And I'm going to let it just bleed around. You'll hear me as we advance. Where you have it once, put it again. Now I'm going to get my green, and I'm going to add yellow to it. So I have a yellowish green. And this is so wet, it's going to all blend into itself. So I'm not worried with that. I'm not worried with a darn thing here. If something goes awry or I make a mistake, which is not uncommon, I'm going to add some of this up here. And it's so wet, see, I don't have to worry about that. That's just going to blend right on in. It all is. And I'm not covering every spot on the paper because we've got more to add as we go. More water, going to spread it around. All right, see my yellow dried so light I can't see it, so I'm going to stick some more in. Careful around these edges. Now you probably don't think that this is as pretty as I do, but I know where we're going. I know where we're headed. So once again, I say over and over, if you don't have confidence in you, there you go, have confidence in me. Now I'm going to let this sit for a minute. And I am going to pause because there's no need for you to watch me watch water evaporate. And when it gets dry enough that it's not moving around, I will blow dry it. So let's do that. Now see me picking? I'm put my brush down. Don't want to pick. All right. I'm going to pause for a minute and blow dry it. All right, let me put this away. Nice and dry. I'm going to show you where we're headed in this next little segment. This is where we're going. Down here, I'm going to wet this. Not down here in the stem, but I'm going to wet this part. Sheath, maybe it's called. I don't know. It has always reminded me of a little old lady whose panties or pantyhoses sort of hanging around her ankle. And I'm going to add some color. And I'm going to add some red. And I'm going to add some purple. And what else? I don't know. this is sort of a tricky part, and it might take more practice and maybe even on a separate piece of paper. I'm going to rinse my brush. Now, instead of being on the tip of my scraper, like we did up here, I'm going to get on the edge of it, like I showed you over here. And this is wet. It's not sopping wet, but it is wet. And on the side, I'm just going to make crisscrosses. And I'm going to leave that alone. Let me get this up close for you to see. And it looks like a mess. They all do. That looks like a mess. But when we get it all in context, it's not going to look like a mess. I'm going to leave that alone. And we're going to begin negative painting. I'm going to draw a blade of grass here. I'm going to draw, whatever that is there. And that's enough to show you what we're going to do. I'm going to wet, see the tip of my brush going around here. And I'm going to wet in here. Now this is clear water. And I'm going to do the same thing here. There we go. And I'm going to do just what we did before, but I'm going to use a little darker value. A little darker value, because we're going to build this up, and I'm going to paint around. And then I'm going to smush this out into nothing. It doesn't have to go all the way to the edge. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. The colors don't have to match. And I'm going to stay real close here. And what I have done, I'm going to move, is I have painted around the grass. I've painted around the object. I have not painted the object. I've painted around it. And that is negative painting. So I've gotten this one this far. I'm going to move this one. So this is all dry. And I'm going to put another blade of grass here and maybe bring it up here. And I'm going to bring something. Okay, hon, I'm in class. God love him. All right. Now I'm going to paint even darker. Different green. I can add greens. I can add blues. I'm going to paint around that, and I'm going to bleed it out while it's wet. I'm going to add some blue, bleed it out. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. There we go. There we go. Now, see how that's going to work? And I'm going to do the same thing up here. Just like that. Wet it, bleed it out into nothing, just smushing it with water. I'm going to do the same thing over here. You know, you may or may not want to try to do this all in one sitting, because it's a lot more concentration for you than it is for me. Now, see, I've got all of these negatively painted. Sorry, I kicked the table. That's not showing up very much. There, that's showing up better. Negative painting. Now, I want all of this to dry again so it doesn't bleed everywhere. So once again, I'm going to pause for you. This is dry. Now look how many times I'm going to do this over and over. So sit tight. It's quite the process. I'm going to add another leaf or blade of grass, whatever I choose right here. I'm going to add one right here. I'm going to add one coming out here. Now that has to connect somewhere over here. So I'm going to draw that down. Now this is going to get confusing. So I'm going to stop here and show you what I'm doing. Again, different color, still green, blue, mixing them together, adding them. Right up next, this is like the coloring book. You stay outside the edges. I'm going to rinse my brush, wet all of this so it smushes out. Do the same thing up here. Now I am being careful here, sort of outlining. And I'm going to smush all of this out. Going to do the same thing down here. In between, I'm not painting the grass. And this is when it starts getting a little complicated because we're just making more and more shapes to paint around, and they're getting smaller and smaller. There we go. I'm going to mix some more green, get some more blue. I'm going to come in here. Too much pigment. And I got out of line, but I can't stop right now because I'm holding my mouth just right. Now I'm going to pull up some of that. I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to come in here with the same technique here, painting around. Same thing here. I'm going to smush that out. Same thing here. And as we progress here, now remember, you're not supposed to know how to do this. That's why I'm teaching it to you. I'm going to come over here. And as we go and as we build it up, you'll notice some of the leaves are lighter. They get darker the deeper we get into it. So we've got a background happening here. There you go. I'm going to darken around here just a little bit more. If you get it too dark, add water, wipe it up. If you don't get it dark enough, add some more. gonna blow dry that. So see, each layer of this grass, I'm blow drying it. Here we go. Finished that. What did I do with my pencil? You know the old adage, I'd lose my head if it wasn't screwed on. All right, I'm gonna add more grass here. I'm not looking for perfection because again, remember this is a practice. We'll figure this out as we go. I'm going to add one in here. Now I'm going to get dark. It's not really dark, but it's going to be dark enough probably to scare you. If that's there, that's this. So what I'm doing, let me show you on my palette. I've got my green here, any color green you want. You see that? I'm going to add red to it. And it's going to be a less intense green. So I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to get my ultramarine here, mix that in. So I've got a blue green. So I've got some of all of it going on here. Wet brush. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paint everything. Now see, I don't want that just to be all green. So I'm going to get into my blue. And you think this is dark. It's not really that dark. It'll get, but it's something you want to practice doing, getting dark. Now, what you don't know, but I'm going to tell you, is that I just painted over the grass that came through here. So I added that one, and we're just going to let it be. Not worrying about any of it. I'm outlining again. See how dark that pigment is? I'm going to outline here. I'm going to smush this all inside. Now I'm staying up close to the edge, but I'm still letting that waffle. And I'm going to come down here. And I'm just painting in all of these spaces again, but I am not painting the grass. I'm not painting the grass. Here we go. Now look how pretty that's beginning to develop. You don't do this all at, I mean, this is step by step. All of these are techniques you're going to use as you paint. And I think probably in most paintings, by the time you finish it and you like it, you will have used most of everything you know. That darker. Now it's easy to get tired of this, and it's easy to get sloppy with this, but be patient. If you need to take a break and go, wow, this is making me crazy, and you need to go get a fresh cup of coffee or glass of wine or beverage of choice, do it. This is a lot of thinking and it's a lot of concentration, and I'm just making this look like I just whip it out, but I'm not. I have done probably, God, I don't even know how many of these. I'm going to change to a little bit more blue in here. And I'm going to go lighter because this will be the dense part. Paint that. And I'm going to do one more section for you. And then we'll call it quits because, you know, enough of a good thing is enough of a good thing. See, now I'm just smushing that in. Water, water, water. There. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to blow dry this one more, and we're going to call it a day on this. You can take this as far as you want, but once you learn the technique, you know, we can do it on other paintings. This is all dry again. I'm going to add a few more because I know you're here, here, here. I'm making this up. There's no, you put them wherever you want. You'll either like it or you will not like it, and both is okay. All right. I want to put one, I'll put one in here for you. Now this is getting mighty green. And if I keep adding to this green with the red to get it darker, it's going to turn brown. I'm going to clean this stuff off, and I'm going to go in with a blue. Now, if you've got Payne's Gray or something like that, this is ultramarine. I'm sticking a little bit of orange in it. So I'm getting almost a midnight blue. Can you see how that's working? And I'm going to go in here with that. It's not real thick pigment, or it'll wind up getting really opaque on you. And a term you'll hear a lot is muddy, but we're not concerned with muddy. There we go. You know, and on my color wheel video, I can't talk and do this at the same time. Bear with me. I'm working a little quicker now. One, the shapes are smaller, and two, I know you're tired. And that's dark enough for right now. You can see on this one, it gets darker. And again, if you like your painting, keep it. If you don't like it, paint on the back. And then if you don't like it, throw the dadgum thing away. So here is, I'm going to show you some of these from that. See how blue, and it's got some of the orange in the background. Just to show you, the point I'm making here is that they will all turn out differently. And yours won't turn out like mine. Mine won't turn out like yours. Yours won't turn out like somebody else's, because we don't know what colors we're using. We don't know how much water we're using. But for today, I think that's good. So take a break and like me. Some people have said they can't see the subscribe button, but it should be down, you know, below where the video is. So subscribe to me, like me, comment, and we'll see you for our next beginning exercise. I just hope this has been as much fun for you as it's been for me. If it's not been fun, then stop it and just start it over till it is. All righty, I'll see you later.